let's get going. Thank you very much for being here. This is another installment of the podcast, The Lighthouse, where we are highlighting and giving a platform to Hispanic and Latino leaders in the space. And today we have Mr. Freddy Padilla. So, Freddy, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
So, I'm Freddy Padilla. I am the engineering director of the Austin office for Page, Soil, and Page. We call him Page. I've been at Page for 17 years. And I've been helping create and design the data center industry for all of those years. So,
fantastic, Freddy. I really, really appreciate you being here with us. So let's just kind of dive right in. The whole purpose of the podcast is to share your story, share your journey, and kind of be an inspiration to those that are kind of thinking of getting into the space, or maybe already in the space already, but want to get to a position or kind of a role that you're in today. And so kind of help give them some advice and lessons learned along the way. But before we get into your professional career, I kind of want to expand on your childhood. So you originally from Puerto Rico?
Yes, Naranjito, Puerto Rico.
Naranjito, Puerto Rico. What can you tell? What kind of town is Naranjito, Puerto Rico, Freddy?
It's a small town. It's around 20,000 people. It's got like 7 middle schools. And when I was going there, it was 7 middle schools, maybe 15 elementary schools and like only one high school. So that was the size of the town.
Where in Puerto Rico, if I think of Puerto Rico as a circular island, where is it? A coastal city? Is it in the middle?
It's in the mountains, and it's a small island, of course. So it's around 40 to 50 minute drive to San Juan. A lot of people live in the town and commute to San Juan. A lot of people work in the industry of agriculture in the town. So basically, those are the two major things, or you can be a vendor, like sell in the little town stores. You work in the agriculture, or you commute to what we call the area metro, with the metropolitan area for a job.
Now, what did your parents do growing up? Like, what was your upbringing like?
Well, my dad, he was a policeman when I was born. Before that, he was in the military. He was a military. And then after that, he became a policeman in Puerto Rico. And military in the United States. He served at the Vietnam War. My mom, she actually was the youngest of 10. She was a big family. We live in my mom's town and with my mom's family next to my grandparents. I was raised with a huge family, 30-something cousins. And everybody lived really close to each other. I would say maybe 15 of them or something like that will be there. I was the youngest, so I was raised with my second cousins, not with my first cousin, because my first cousins were older. So my second cousins were kind of closer to my age. So that was my mom. My mom was she was very special. She's like she works. She was actually went to do like what we call today like some sort of certificate. And back in the day, from a family where we came from, that was something. So she was a secretary of a Singer, the sewing machines. They
Singer, like the sewing company.
The sewing company. They were building these machines in my hometown when my mom was there. The company then disappeared and closed shops. But then my mom, while the company was doing these machines, she was working there. And then as a secretary, she was like the receptionist. My mom got married when she was 40. My mom was very ahead of her time. She felt that she did a lot of things for herself, and then she found my dad and got married. She did not get married pretty quick. She took a long time. So she was not 40, but she was like probably 36, really close to her 40s. She got me when she was 40. So
awesome. So now I'm the youngest of 4, and my mom had me later in life, pretty close to 42. So I can relate. Okay. So you grew up in Naranjito. Your mom was working for Singer. Your dad was a police officer. What led you into engineering? Did you know at an early age you wanted to be an engineer?
Yeah, Puerto Rico is an island. It's in the Caribbean. So it's a lot of natural events. So something that I grew up with was with hurricanes, or storms. They will come and they will typically a lot of branches will kill the power, and you will be without power and water for a long time. So one time when I was like 5 years old, one of those storms came across, and the power went off. And then the way it was structured in Puerto Rico is like they had a crew that came and fixed the little towns, that crew included an engineer. So at that point, when they were trying to put the power back on, there was a lot of logistics, and a lot of people were involved because you needed to cut the branches, you needed to put the wire up. Now I know a lot more, but I'm giving you a lot, but my mind take me to that moment. It's like they were cutting the branches, they were connecting the wires. There was a transformer, there was a lot of different things. And they were trying to figure out how to get power back on. And they had this engineer on the floor directing everybody and making sure everything was done at the right time. Do not start. There is a branch over there, take it off. And, I was a 5-6-year-old, a big deal for me. So I was pretty excited about what he was doing and what he did to us. He brought power back, and I was like, man, now I can have my fan on, and we have food on the refrigerator. We can store, and we can have cold water. I like cold water. So I was like a little guy saying, wow. And then my mom said, what is he doing? I told him, yeah, he's the engineer. And I told my mom, oh, that's what I want to do. And I stick with that until I made it and graduated. And I made my life the journey to try to be an engineer just because of that amazing guy that brought us power during that storm.
Now
After the storm.
So you've had an affinity for engineering since you were young. I can definitely see that. I can imagine a 6-year-old seeing that person doing what they're doing, and just for you feeling like they are the head coach of a football team, right? Like making it all come together so that you can bring power back. Did you know that, like, as you got older, maybe high school, middle school, and you realized like, hey, engineering requires a lot of math? Was that something that came natural to you, and so you stuck with it, or was that something that you had to struggle with?
I think somebody mentioned it to me when I was young. My uncle was a math teacher, and he was retired, but then he was helping his son with a pool store that he had near my house. Of course, like I said, I live in a town. The whole street now the whole street that today is called like my grandfather, Isaac Morales. The whole street now the whole area has got my grandfather name. So it's all family. So they opened like a little store. It was a pool store. And I would go in the afternoons so he can teach me math, because somebody told me I needed math. So I got really good at it because I wanted that. So I started practicing, and it was coming natural to me. And I liked it. And he would teach me in the afternoons after school. And then I got really good at it. But then I discovered that, I was in a very poor time. My maths were not too advanced, so I needed more, but I didn't know that until I actually got to university. But when I was there, trust me, I can solve for X. And I was pretty excited. I was like, man, I can solve for X. Give me anything and I can solve for X. That was my thing. I can do anything. Give me whatever and I can solve for X. That was me back in the day, The Freddy trying, very excited, but that was it.
Okay. So then you would get through high school. What kind of a student were you? Were you studious? Did you do well? I'm kind of curious to hear that side of.
I think, yeah. If my sister ever listened to this, my sister would always say that I would not be applied to school. Like I was too many. I was always kind of spread around and do a lot of different things. My sister always wondered if I was gonna make it because I was not too applied to it, not too into it. I got good grades, but keep in mind the school that I went was a very in a small town, and the competition and the classes were not that hard. They really didn't teach you that much. They were happy if I did the homework and I will take the test. So basically what I did is just do the homework sometimes before the class and then take the test, or listen in class and try to answer whatever I listen in class. That was my strategy. And I didn't get all A's. Sometimes I get, when I was in elementary, I think I get all A's, but when I got older, I didn't study. I was more focused on playing volleyball and basketball and baseball and any sort of sport that I can get my hands into it and watch it on TV. And I was just a typical kid that just loved sports. And that was my thing. So and my mom would take me to all the games and I would play in teams. And I played volleyball in the school, basketball in a league. a lot of sports. So, I was not that focused on school, but I still got good grades. When I got closer to get to the university, I was like, oh my God, I gotta get good grades. So because I needed to make it to go to Mayagüez, which is the best school we have, and it's the only one, it's the cheapest. That's the reason. So I was like, man, I gotta make it to Mayagüez. It was two universities, Mayagüez and La Poli. La Poli was really expensive. I was like, I'm not gonna make it to La Poli, so I need to make it. So in the last 2 years, I think I cranked it up a little bit and got good grades and get ready for the college board, which it was the test that you take back in the day. And I managed to make it. But let me tell you, to get accepted into electrical engineer, they had this whole calculation that you need to arrive to a number, and the number was 310. I made it 311, and I got accepted, but it was right on the edge, just because I never kind of got myself into it. I always had to push at the end, which my sister always thought, man, I wish you could focus, but I never did.
But hey, all that matters is you got in. So
I did.
you then go into Universidad of Mayagüez in Puerto Rico.
Well, I did not actually. I couldn't afford it. I didn't have enough money to go to Mayagüez. I didn't know what to do. So they came up with this program that you were accepted in Mayagüez, but you can actually do the first 2 years in Bayamón, which is right next to my house. So I went to Bayamón for the first 2 years, take the basic courses, and when I finished the basic courses, they moved me to Mayagüez automatically because I was already accepted. And it was good because I will hitchhike to work, to school. I will get up in the morning, go into the gas station, and hitchhike. And why hitchhike? Why I didn't arrange with somebody because I didn't have enough money to pay for the gas. So if you kind of schedule to go with somebody every day, you probably should contribute with the gas. So I didn't. So what I did is I just step at different times and get a different people and go to the school, hitchhike, get somebody to give me a ride. And that's how I got to Bayamón the first 2 years. It was tough. It was tough. I think it was a rough time, I think, to be able to those 2 years.
How far was the distance between your house and the first 2 years of university?
It was like 30 miles, 20 miles, but yeah, it was hard. It was all a plan. The goal was my sister will graduate, she'll help me, and then I can go into Mayagüez with my sister with my sister's support once she started working. And that's what we did. My sister was there for me. So I went to Bayamón, went to my sister, graduated from medical technology. She started working, and then she helped me a little bit in Mayagüez. So I can actually be able to deal with it.
Live, yeah, okay.
To live, yeah.
Wow. So I'm trying to picture, and you start the local college there close to you. You're hitchhiking every day to and from.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know, so at that point, out of all the engineering, why did you pick electrical versus?
For that same reason. That's what I said I wanted to do, power. So I wanted it. I started growing up and I started studying about it. I was like, man, there's no internet. You got to go to the library and then start reading. They have this little public library in the middle of the town. I go in there and read books about power because I was interested. So I was so excited about going into power and and then I took physics, and then it was like, man, magnetics. And I got, I kind of built up myself into it. I don't know why.
So this is the perfect industry for you then. Okay. So you start there, you do your 2 years, your sister finishes. So she's able to work and help support you in a way.
Yeah. And just so you know, when I was going to my school, I will try to contribute to my sister's books. I have an aunt that helped with their book, but I tried because we didn't have any money. My sister needed to buy books too. My sister last year of medical technology was really expensive. So man, it was tight. But I had an amazing aunt and an amazing family that helped me. Without them, I would have never make it.
I'm kind of curious to dig into that here as we continue our conversation, is to kind of playing it full circle. But I'm gonna kind of put that to the side and I'll come back to it. So you then finish your first 2 years. Do you move to Mayagüez? For our listeners, how far away is Mayagüez from?
It's a 2-hour drive from home.
Naranjito.
I had a friend that would go there, and at the time I met my wife. Between my friend and my wife, I found a way. There was this bus that take you there, so I didn't have a car. We had a car. When my dad died when I was 16, my sister took the car to go to university, and I made a deal with my sister that when she graduated, she will get the car, and when I go to Mayagüez, I was gonna get my dad car. But she told me, and my sister was like my mom in some way, and she said, "I'm not giving you the car until I get an insurance for you. So I have to work, pay for the insurance, and then you will get the car, because I think you're gonna get into trouble without an insurance." That's what she told me. So that she paid the insurance, gave me the car, and then finally I had a car to go to Mayagüez. But that, I don't think it happened exactly the same year. I think it happened because she quite didn't finish. I think it was after I was the second semester. The first semester I had to ride on the bus and do things. The second semester my sister finished. She passed the car to me, and then I finally had a car. It was my dad's old car that belongs to the two of us. She used it first, and then she gave it to me.
Were you commuting every day the 2 hours, or was it?
No. Oh man. When my dad died when I was 16, my uncle told my dad that he was going to help me. So my uncle he was a doctor. So he lived like 35 miles from the university. But it was too far, and this was a little bit more intense. So he had a doctor office in town, and his son just moved to Arkansas to work in Arkansas, and he left his office open. What is an office? What is a doctor office? It was where he did a desk, and then it was in the back, another room with to do the examination. So we took the examination table, the examination out, put a little bed in there, and I will do homework in the desk, and I will sleep there. There was a restroom. I needed to cross to my uncle's office to go to a restroom. So every morning I will have to get out of my room. So my uncle was taking care of somebody there that they're doing a consult, and to go to a restroom. I will have to take a shower. There was no shower. So it was like the building have like an empty strip on the back with a hose. So I will have to take a shower with a hose so I can get a shower at night. Of course, the office closed at 5, so I will take a shower at 6 or 7 because it will get like 60 degrees. So trying to take a shower, it was in the city. It had 4 walls, but the cover was not. It was open, the back part, and it was like tough. And then he had water heater, but then he never connected to the water heater. I needed to do a call until I finally convinced him, because he was very tough. Finally convinced him to hook it up to the water heater, because it was so much better to do it with hot water than with warm water, but it's still with a hose. And I put one of those things that makes
spray.
It was a yellow one that it was about this big, and then just use it like this. I usually start on the bottom because it was so cold, and then go my way up until I did. But of course, that didn't work out too well because I'm so young. I didn't know much. I didn't clean up. I just always take the shower outside and didn't clean up the water, and then mosquitoes grow, and then this dengue mosquito grow, and then he bite me, and then I ended up in the hospital, almost died because of it, because it's a very dangerous disease. And after that happened, my mom family got together. I said, "No, this is crazy. He should not be. He cannot be living there anymore." And I continued to study. It was hard. My grades were not as good in Mayagüez and in Bayamón. I came from a school. It was hard. I needed to learn everything from scratch. Didn't know English, so the books were in English. I had to learn myself how to read English. It was a nightmare. And it was a lot of challenges in the school too. But it was a lot of challenges where I was living. It was tough. So my family finally got mad and said, "We're gonna get a few of my older cousins got together and pay for it was like $120 for me to have a room." And I didn't need it anymore, my uncle. So my mom family, got together and paid me $125 for me to have a room. That was so much better. My grades increased so much. I did so much better just to have a place with a shower. And I got this with old lady in a room. It was crazy until it was tough. That first semester that they pay, but then later on, a roommate, one guy that he was with me in class told me that his roommate left. He needed somebody. It was like a house with 3 people. I shared a room with him and a restroom. Oh my God, that was great. My grades were like, I was all A's. I finally, my grade, my last 2 semesters, I got all A's. It was like night and day. It was a big deal to have a room, not even an office. It was too much.
So I'm sitting here just in awe, Freddy. So I'm going to try to summarize what I just heard, right? You moved to Mayagüez, where your first 2 years of university, you hitchhiked about 30 miles to and from. You then finally finish. You get enough to go to Mayagüez, but you live in your uncle's office, which he is using for consultations. And so you have an examination room that has a bed and a desk, a restroom that you have to use as available based on who's in the room getting examinations. And you were showering. Basically, you were doing the cold plunge before it was a thing.
Mhm.
So you were ahead of your time. You knew cold showers kind of did things good for your health, and so you were showering outside with the hose. You almost died from dengue. Is that right?
Dengue.
Dengue, because of the mosquitoes that were growing, and that was what it took for your family to be like, okay, we're gonna figure out how to do this. $120 gets you a room, and now you have a room to finish university.
Yes.
And then that's when you see your grades just skyrocket.
Oh, yeah. I almost lost the semester. I still passed. They were bad. That was a bad semester, the one I got dengue, but I still, when I came back, I had to pass. It's not about the grades for me. I couldn't keep a GPA. I needed to graduate. And it was no GPA. There is no such thing of a GPA for me. I didn't care about GPAs. I needed to graduate. Because, of course, it was tough. Think about it. I have a family member collecting $125 for me to pay. And I just needed to pass and graduate.
And they're probably sacrificing to be able to pay for you to do that.
All of them together, getting this money to my mom so my mom can give it help me give it to me so I can give it to that lady, and then I can give it to my roommate so he can pay for that room.
So, interesting theme that I've heard. One of the people that we interviewed just recently was a gentleman named Oz Morales, and he was telling the story of how some of the people that he likes to hire, and he was kind of giving this advice to hiring managers, those that are maybe listening, about, when you see a person's grades, for example, on paper, if they don't necessarily have all A's, you got to dig a little deeper. And his favorite thing and his favorite hires and his best hires were those people that had the background of, they had 2 jobs and they sacrificed and they had all of this other stuff that isn't on the paper, but they did all of that plus went to school and got through. And it was kind of just from a grit and from a determination perspective, they're the hardest workers he's ever hired. So it's interesting for you to kind of share your story. The Freddy that I know and I met you probably 10, 15 years past that. I would have never guessed. Like, all I saw was a very hardworking, determined, intelligent person. But it's crazy how, like, the little troubles in your life create a much more deeper person in who you are, that you can't put value to that. So, okay, so you graduate. What would you say you graduated in top of your class, middle of your class, just barely, just got through?
Just got through. I think it was like a very low GPA, but man, it was all about graduating.
But you finished.
That was
amazing.
the goal.
Okay.
That was the goal. And I did. And I my last semesters were pretty good. I think when I finally got an apartment, and my wife at the time, my girlfriend, was like with me, and I told her, we talk about it, propose, and then we're gonna get married and so on. When we finished, it was like I was on, like, okay, I didn't usually my West is a 5-year degree, it's not a 4-year degree, because it's kind of like a master's. And I didn't took 5 years, I took 5.5 because I missed a class. Because of course, that semester that I got sick, I couldn't, it was a tough semester. So I took an extra semester. We graduated in December. And my wife, she was at the time, my girlfriend, she had 1 degree and then she finished his second degree on that extra 6 months. So we finished at the same time. I finished with 1 degree, she finished with 2. but yes, for me, it was a big deal. So after that, then after I graduated, my wife was an amazing person and she's got a job in IBM. I told her, if I can finish these, I was pretty confident that I can find a job. I said, I'll find a job. And I told her that. So I said, you look for whatever you want, I'll find a job. And I did. So she found a job in IBM here in Austin, and I followed her and looked for a job. She took care of me for a few months until I got a job, and it was tough. I couldn't get a job. So it was rough.
Okay, let's just go back one step though, because I'm kind of curious before we jump into your career. Had you spent any time outside of Puerto Rico up until this point? So up until you graduating, Had you ever left the island? Had you gone to different places?
Well, my dad, when I was young before he died, um, he will take me a few summers with my sisters. I have two sisters. He married the first time, and I had two sisters in New York. So he will send me to New York. My sister will live in the Bronx, so I will go to the Bronx. But come on, the Bronx. I learned the Bronx was just like Puerto Rico, you know. I learned no, I lived there, and I was like in the summer for a month. It was like it was Puerto Rico. It was like going in there, a lot of Spanish, a little bit. People will speak like some English and a little bit, you know, a little bit of English and mostly Spanish. And I would pick up some, but it was basically living in the island in the Bronx because it was an area where it was full of Puerto
Ricans. So I guess the part that I was trying to kind of expand here is, had you experienced like being a minority up in this part? Because I'm assuming in Puerto Rico, it's all Puerto Ricans, and for the most part, like there is no.
No, I never experienced to be a minority. That was not a thing in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was more, people will focus more on your nationality. Like if you're Dominican Republic or if you are Cuban or if you are from Venezuela, it was more about your nationality than your, that was the minority I was exposed to, Haiti, Dominican Republic, that was it. That was the minority that I was exposed to. And those people will come to the island and they will work very hard. And I will see them, but that was the only thing. But they were all different colors and different shapes. It was not like that much of the Cubans were like different colors, and the Dominicans and Haiti, they were African Americans. Some of them were, not all of them. So you didn't know. It was not minorities were not that well known in the island.
It wasn't a comps that you were familiar with. And the reason for me, very similar. I grew up in El Paso, which is predominantly Hispanic. There's a large military base there. And so you see, I refer to it as a melting pot. You see everything. So for me, the concept of being a minority or being classified as one was foreign. I didn't really experience it until I went to college.
Did not exist. And in college did not exist. This thing of minority, it was foreign to me. I learned it when I came to U.S. When somebody explained to me, I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, but why? I still struggle. I still don't process why people group and then people do certain things as a minority. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I struggle with that a little bit through my career.
It's kind of when I referred to our conversation with Oz that we had, he shared the same thing. He said that when he grew up in Chile till he was 8, went to Canada until after college, and it just wasn't a thing. And it wasn't until he got to his first job in the States that he was like, oh, well, this is what this means. And so, okay. So let's go back. So you graduate college, you're engaged by this point with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
She gets a job at IBM. You come and you struggle to find a job.
Yeah.
How long did you kind of go job searching for?
It was 3 to 4 months. It was very
that's not that long in retrospect, but I'm sure in the moment it probably felt like forever.
I was down. My wife had to pull me up. It was a hard time for me. My wife will tell you the story that I didn't want to even look at some point. I felt so devastated. My wife was doing it. She was highlighting. At the time, it was no internet, no Indeed, no any engines.
So what were you looking?
Newspaper, highlight, and calling and sending a resume by fax. Connected to a computer with a printer. So that's kind of what we will do. At some point, I stopped doing it because I was frustrated that I could not get anything. It's like, until she continued to send the resumes for me. And then if they call me, I will go, and I was like kind of disappointed. I couldn't get anything. It was like 4 months. It was not that bad. But believe me, for somebody that just fresh out of school, that graduated, I'm not living with my mom at home. I'm living with my wife. Yeah. So, I'm doing everything I can. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, doing everything I can. But I felt that I needed to do something. So I started exploring the military. So my wife said, wow, he went one day and took the test. And I told my wife, well, listen, I just go for a year to learn English. And because they got a school in Lackland, and I know many of my friends have done it. Maybe that's what I do. And that's how I learn it, because I don't think I'm going to be able to take a job without learning it. I told her that was me plan B. Which is, no, continue sending the resumes. And she did. She continued what I was trying to maybe about possibly joining the military. That's what I was doing. That was my plan.
So for those that are listening that may not know, you're in Austin at this point looking for a job.
Yeah.
How would you categorize or how would you classify your English at this time?
Broken. I couldn't speak. I could not say a word. I could understand and read because I have teach myself reading on the university with all the books. Of course, the engineering vocabulary was in the books, but I have read the books in Spanish, but in English. So it was a weird deal. So if you say, I will pronounce every word in Spanish until somebody will say it, and I will try to adjust it, but it was hard for me. So every word I would say it pronounced in Spanish.
So the word because was because.
Yeah, because.
Until you heard somebody say because. And then you would make the mental switch.
Yes, but I started taking classes at the same time. I went Round Rock. I was in Austin, Round Rock, near Round Rock. So the Round Rock High School had a program for people like us that didn't know. In this case was for other people. I just happened to come from a small town that never learned any English. But I started taking classes of English. And that started helping me. I started picking it up. I'm breaking how I read versus how I pronounce. And that during those classes helped me too, and then I think, time start passing, and then until my English started improving enough for somebody to take a chance on me and pay me very little. But I was okay with it. I said, well, pay me nothing, but let me learn. And that's what I did. I got that job for, I think it was $28,000 back in 98, just so I can, and I think most of my friends were making 40 or something or 45, and I was making 28. But I was thrilled. I was like, happy.
You were excited. So
yeah, that was the first opportunity.
Let's dig into that. So what was that first opportunity out of college?
It was a company called Getting an Associate. They were based in San Antonio. And they took a chance on me. I think a couple of things. Even though I didn't speak the language, remember, I can read on my own way. So I took the EIT and I passed the EIT. So, so I got, there is this guy that barely can speak, but he passed every test.
That's not normal, by the way, but just that's not normal, but keep going.
Yeah. So I took the EIT and I passed the EIT. I got a degree that is ABE certified. So there's this weird guy that have all these particular credentials, but he can barely speak. It's weird. How did he made it? And I think somebody say, but I said, do you know how to do AutoCAD? I said, yeah, I do. So they hired me, and basically I was doing drafting. And I'm telling you, the first guy will say, copy from here to here, line. And he will be very slow. It was so embarrassing and so hard. For somebody like me that is so fast, you hear me in this conversation.
You're going 100 miles an hour, yeah.
Can you imagine one guy copy
from
here to here? And that was the way he talked to me, and that's how I got. It was so hard.
Did you ever feel like, I'm curious to dig in there because I'm sure there's probably some listeners that might be in the same situation that you're describing. Did you feel that he was adjusting his rate of speech to truly help? Or was it condescending?
No, I was weak.
Like
I needed
he
him.
needed him to do that.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very different, because for those listening, like they could interpret what you just described in different ways.
I was weak. I never had TV. So even when I went to Mayagüez, of course, in my uncle's office, what TV I'm gonna watch? There was no TV there. And then I go to the old lady room. Of course, they pay me $125, no TV again. When I go to my wife's apartment, there was a TV, but I spent most of the time, I'm lucky that the internet was at the time, and I started working Windows 3.1. But of course, that's reading, not TV. And back in the day, there was no YouTube. It was only all typing. So no pronunciation, no verbal skills. So imagine this. So my ears were not good, and my language was bad. So but you put it in writing, then I can. So I was a strange individual, very strange. Give me the rules, I can read it. I'll read it. I come back and I can do it. And the guy started figuring me out quickly. I say, oh, he can read. I say, yes, I can read.
I keep laughing, and I want to give some of the listeners the context. When I met you, it was probably 5 to 10 years post where we are right now in your story. And I was really young in my career, and I think the only reason why most of the time I was allowed in the room, if you will, when you were present, because you were already in your senior in your position, was because I was your translator. And when Freddie would get excited, you'd speak really fast, and then it was like, "Hey, bring Alfonso in here." And so it's funny because now hearing your story, it just makes so much sense. So okay, so let's dig in a little bit. So you're at the drafting company, you are drafting, you're learning English. How long do you stay there?
Well, I was still frustrated with my English, honestly. So I told my wife at the time, man, I gotta find a way to improve my English. My English is so bad. So I took advantage that I was an engineer with all the credentials and I was getting better. In a year, my skills with AutoCAD were fast. I started competing with the guys, say who do Markov faster. So I will learn, I can copy paste and throw in things like faster than the guy that was teaching me a year ago. I was fast. So I started discovering that, well, I'm learning some skills with the AutoCAD. I can really draft fast and I can locate receptacles and lights. That was what I did. I can do it. So I said to my wife, man, maybe if I can get a job and go to school, that will help me. That's what I'm going to do. So I got to this person called Y Engineering, and he saw my skills. This guy was a little bit different interview. At the time, I had some experience, but he kind of got me to do some work, and he saw my skills. I said, this guy don't speak well, but man, he knows what he's doing.
He's good at his job.
Yeah. So he gave me a chance. And he said, I only want 32 hours, I told him. I want to go to school. I want to use these other 8 hours to go to school. So because I was thinking I'd do a master's just because I thought the goal was to take some classes so I can, and I said, well, let's take classes that do something for me. So I started taking classes and I tried to take like, I don't know, economy or classes that would be writing instead of not math because I don't want to take any math because it's not fair. Occasionally I did want to say I got to take something for the soul, so I take a math class or something that is math related. But I was trying to take different other.
That's
different.
Also not normal, by the way. I want to make sure our listeners heard what you said. You decided to take a math class because it fed your soul.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want to make sure I heard that correctly, Freddie.
Think about it. You're taking all this English stuff, and then I'm bad and always struggling, and but you put math in front of me
and you just knock it out.
I knock it out, so I can figure out the spreadsheets, so it's not just only not for the soul, but think about it, it's trying to get myself somehow better, so yes, so I went into to study, and I met this guy Tim Wan, and he was a mechanical engineer that also knew electrical, and I had this Tom Glass, the electrical engineer at the time, and these two guys started teaching me. Compared to I knew enough now so I can learn engineering. And I already knew, but somebody can start giving me better assignments and I can start learning. I was enjoying it. So I was working 40 hours or something. My deal was for 32, and I will continue to go to school and work and go to school at the same time. And I was doing really well. He was teaching me and I was learning because, I can finally break the barrier of speaking. I can speak enough for me to learn. Oh, that felt so great. That moment when you can speak and they can understand what you say and you can learn. Oh my God, that was such a great feeling. Amazing feeling.
Let me kind of forward this then. How much time passed between college graduation to that moment? Like, how many years?
Maybe like 3 or 4 years. I think it was 2001, 2000 when I spent like 1 year in the first firm, and I would have stayed on that firm forever. I think I would have probably stayed, and who knows, maybe I would have owned it today. But we moved to Puerto Rico, and then they ended up closing the shop because I think Tim retired. But yeah, that was an amazing opportunity for me, and I learned so much. He teach me so much. And he definitely worked with me and taught me a lot and worked with my deficiency. He's one of those guys that see a deficiency and work with it. And
is he still around? What is he doing?
I think he's retired now and he's still around. I heard, I work with his, some of my employees today have worked with his wife, Asamwa, and she's an amazing, they describe her as a great leader. I say, yeah, they were great leaders, both of them amazing leaders. And yeah, so because the team will work with you and teach you with what you got. So he was working with my witness. the English. But he knew that was my weakness, and then he figured a way to go around it. He was making me so good and so powerful. Like I was a time that I was like, man, because I learned all I used with him for the first time, and I was pretty good. I can solve a lot of issues with him by my side.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah. Having the right person made a huge difference.
I hope he's hearing this now and like can share, because I think one of the things that I try to draw out in this podcast, not only for the listeners that are maybe like younger in their career, maybe relate to you, Freddie, but also those that are listening to this that are managers themselves, that maybe have individuals that relate to all the topics you're talking about, and it's really about figuring out what their weaknesses are, working around them. Because what I see now is somebody that is grateful, humbled, and just very, like, when you look back, I see you shine in a certain way that like you have a lot of respect for this individual.
Mm-hmm. I do.
That's fantastic, Freddie. So that's, and the other thing I think to resonate with me is you make it seem like it was a long period of time of graduation to getting to that point where you, as you mentioned, like you finally felt like you were proficient enough to really show what you could do. 3 to 4 years is not a long time in the span of like your career. Now, seeing where you are today, how successful you've been, that's probably just like a blink in your memory. I'm sure in the moment, it probably felt like an eternity. But I think it's for those that are listening that are maybe in that spot where they're struggling and they're in that, like they're seeing the way out. Like for you, it was 3 to 4 years.
It was. Think about it. You're 8 hours, not understanding, every day, going in and having a struggle every day. So it's because it's so constant. It's so consistent. It's tough. It's just, that's what it makes it long. Because when you have an issue and it happens once a day, but imagine it doesn't happen once a day. It happens 8 hours a day or 10 hours. If you work 12 hours, 12 hours. And then you realize that you misunderstood something, and then you have to take another 4 hours because you misunderstood something, and you know it's your fault because you didn't get it. So it feels like an eternity. And I'm sure people out there will feel the same way. It's like, because it's what you use to communicate. It's the number one tool you have at work, communication.
Oh, yeah.
Without that, it's like,
everything.
Wow.
Yeah. 100%.
That's why it feels so long. So people out there probably will be thinking, wow, you're right. It feels hard. It does. But it gets better.
Okay. So I'm excited to get into the get better part. So you switched over. And you mentioned you moved back to Puerto Rico. So at what point did you make the decision to go back for a little bit?
We'll have our kids, and then my mom stayed with the first kid, and then the second kid, we were planning the second kid, and it's like, man, having 2 kids will be kind of difficult without my mom. And my mom at the time was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back for another year because I want to be back in the island. So and then we were spending most of our time traveling back to the island for weddings, this, that. And it was like, man, we're using all our vacation, everything in the island. So for that reason, we decided to go back. And it was a family decision. And we did.
Did you move back to Naranjito or?
No, we moved back to San Juan.
San Juan, okay.
Guaynabo is where we actually not. We was not really like that. We went to my sister and spent maybe like 6 to 8 months with my sister, so we can find a house that we like.
You, your wife, one child,
living at my sister's house.
Back to your sister's. How, for those that are listening, how big was your sister's house at the time?
It was a 3-bedroom house. At the time, she did not have any kids. Okay. So it was, we took one room and my daughter took the other. And it was my sister and my sister's husband in another. Typical Hispanic family all together for like 6 months or 8 months. Because we made a contract with a house in Puerto Rico to buy a house. It was new in a subdivision that they turned something down and they couldn't get the permit. So we kept waiting and waiting and waiting until we gave up and then bought a house some other place. And my sister spent all that time with me there. And I was at the same, again, my wife got a job and I was looking for a job. Same again.
How, just for perspective, how much older is your sister than you?
She's 3.5 years older than me. This one is, yeah. The other 2 are way older.
Is this the same one that also helped you in college, or is this a different? So it's the same one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So even though she was only 3.5, like I felt like she was a lot more maturing, older, perhaps having to take on those responsibilities for you.
Yeah, I will say it was tough. She was tough.
So you go back, you live with your sister, you finally get a house. Did your wife stay with IBM or did she?
No, she moved to work for the Bank of Puerto Rico, Banco Popular. She's got an offer, and that's how we moved. My wife always, she's superstar. So she got a job at Banco Popular, and then we moved. I said, if we do the same thing, but this time will be easier. And it was. I interviewed a few places until I found a job. Because this time I said, I try to look for design, but Puerto Rico didn't have that much of design. And I was like, it's not for me. So I wanted to do construction. So I wanted to change a little bit, like construction management. And I did. I found a job in construction. It took me like 3 months this time. It didn't feel like an eternity at the time. Second time around was easier for some of you guys that are listening. And I was in this situation again that I put myself in. I didn't, I just came down to Puerto Rico. They didn't let me go. And why I could find a job in Austin, no problem. I told many friends, not an issue finding a job, but moving to Puerto Rico and trying to change a little bit career was a challenge. So I went and looked for a construction management job, and I landed into a construction management job.
I would imagine, though, Freddie, I want to dig into just a little bit. Going back, knowing that you're in Puerto Rico, knowing that now you not only speak the native language, Spanish, but you are proficient enough in English.
Yes.
You have your family close by. You're at your sister's house for those first couple of months. I have to assume that the stress was very different than when you went to Austin without any of that.
Look at my expression, the feeling. It didn't feel like a long time. I think it's probably the same amount of time that took me to get the first job, but I was cool. And I got the job, and because I was looking at options, it was different. It was not that much rejections on this and that. It was like, well, would I want to do this or do that? It was a different kind of story, So I got lucky and found the right job. I think that was luck, and got a job that required English. And I already knew some English. It boosted my confidence a lot when I went to the island. I started working with people that speak English in the island because they were more grateful. Oh, man. And I landed into my next mentor, he defined me today. He was an amazing mentor. 2 great mentors in my career there in Puerto Rico. That, one of them was a Puerto Rican. His name was Jamil Cirino, an amazing project manager, an amazing person. And the other one was a person that what we call an expat that came to Eli Lilly. His name was Michael Martin.
Mike Martin, okay.
Man, oh man, that guy, I learned so much from him. And he, I think, was the one that got me over the hump with the language, made me feel comfortable about the English.
Michael Martin, okay.
He was it.
Where is he now?
Well, he was Eli Lilly. I think he was at Eli Lilly. He was the CEO of a big company. He moved from Eli Lilly to be the CEO of a company. He got an amazing job, an amazing leader, and he was very, very high up in Eli Lilly. Now he's the CEO of this company, and he had come to Austin, and we had talked. And yeah, he's an amazing leader. So he was the one that got me over the hump.
Have you ever shared with him, like, the impact that he has in your life?
I don't know if I have, but if he's listening, hopefully he will. Yeah, he was an amazing person. Oh my God, he was good. He was the one that made me understand that the way I speak was okay, and it was fine because he was learning. What I was learning when I was there with him, he was learning Spanish. He would take classes. I would see the tutor come once a week and meet with him for an hour.
Because he was trying to learn Spanish.
Because he was in the island.
So he probably had a lot of empathy.
Oh yeah.
Like he was trying to do the same thing you were doing the other way.
Oh, it was amazing. Okay. It was really good. I think he was the one that turned me around.
So let's dig in. So you're now in a construction company, managing construction.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming most of the contractors and most of the people that we're working with, all of the projects were in the island?
Yeah. It was a staff augmentation kind of deal. See, it kind of a staff augmentation deal. We were working sort of for the client, but not being part of the company. So I was like a Eli Lilly sort of pseudo.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So I was a staff augmentation, and my job was the vendor coordinator. So I needed to coordinate the startup, and happened that job was kind of tied to this guy called Mike Martin. And I started coordinating for him the work. And one, one thing led to another, and I was be able to communicate with him. We established a good relationship. The project was a Fluor Daniel project. It was Fluor. It was in there, and the idea was that Mike was gonna take the startup, and when he moved to production, Fluor was transitioning to him, but it was kind of a gray area who does what. So he took me under his shoulder, and then start all the responsibility that he was taking. He started taking it with me, just like that, and I didn't even never understood how this happened. I worked before that in a small project in Mectronic in a different part of the island, but that was for like a few months. It was really good. I did pretty good. I was excited. I learned a lot. But when I get with him, he took me. Everything started transitioning to him, and he started transitioning with me. So for some reason, when I opened my eyes, I was kind of working with 1,200 people, 1,700 people, and a lot of contractors, and I was the leader of that group. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't even see it coming. I was just continue working next to him. I'm helping through the process and getting that thing started. That was my job, getting the plan to start. But a lot of stuff was not complete. So we ended up doing a ton of construction and a ton of startup. So it was construction, startup, and then passing it over to the group. So I was a staff augmentation, and I got to do contracts. I got to do everything. It was amazing, my experience with him. So he made me grow like a lot.
You were there 5 years, 4 years?
2 to 3 years. I got a ton of experience. I got to do staff augmentation, reporting to a guy in Indianapolis that he was the VP of procurement. So I had to work with him. They also gave me that opportunity. And I did a lot of different staff augmentation with that company. After that, then I moved to work with Abbott and then Wyatt and a couple of other pharmaceuticals too. But most of the time I was with, most of my career was thanks to this guy that taught me, got me through it.
That's fantastic, Freddy. So there's just so many themes there. So you finish doing that, and at some point you move back to Austin. What triggered that?
Well, I realized that construction was very hard. And we went to Puerto Rico to spend time with our family and to do many things. But I realized that I was spending all this time working and no time with the family, that if I wanted to go in construction, I either go to Eli Lilly, which they made me an offer before I left. As I sent my resignation letter, they knew didn't want to take me from my company. But when I did the left, they made me an offer.
It opened the door for them to come after you.
Yeah, and they did. They made me an offer, and I considered them. And the other alternative was to move maybe to US, work for Fluor, get a green field, and they create a reputation that was easy for me to take. But I was like, and apply and get it. We had conversation, but nothing came through. But the two of them my wife seemed to be like, whoa, I don't know if I'm not going to another place. And I understand that the things in Puerto Rico are getting harder. That we might have, if you want to continue growing or getting work, we got to go somewhere. But my wife told me, no, we should go back to Austin if we're going to go back to somewhere. So I follow my wife, I say, okay, then they go back to Austin. This time was different. This time I said, well, this is your city, not mine, because this is a high, a lot of work on the programming side. So don't worry about it. Let me get a job this time. And then this time is your time. You take a break for a few months. So I think it's fair. Let's change this up. Let me get a
got
job.
it. Like you knew Austin was the place
for her.
So, and she could land the job. No problem. So it was let you find your job first. Okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So let me find my job first, and then I get my job, and then you move. And then you take some time off, like I did, because it was kind of nice to have at the time when I went to Puerto Rico. It was kind of nice to have some little time off,
especially with you being stressed about it. So that you were able to actually enjoy the time in between.
So I thought, well, yeah, let's change a little bit the role here. So I came in, and I called Tom Glass, the guy that I work with, and he said, well, yeah, team closed, but when team closed, I created this list of emails and faxes and contacts for the companies that do design. I told my wife, yeah, I'm going back to design. I think construction is good, but designing, Austin, I don't want to travel. And then the good thing about design is I just live in one place and then I don't have to be moving around.
Every time a project finishes.
Yeah. So I said, no, let me go back to design. It's okay. And so I did. I went to design and take that list that Tom Glass gave me, maybe 12 or 15 numbers, and start sending resumes and emails and faxes, whatever he had. I just took his list. Some of them have faxes, some of them have emails. I will do whatever he had. So I started sending email and faxes. I heard up to date that maybe I was the last person hired using a fax resume, a page. But I sent a fax because that's what Tom gave me, that number for sending a fax to Page. But
so I'm curious, who from Page picked up that fax? Do you know?
I think it was the receptionist, and then at the time they passed it over to this guy called S. Stevens. And I came to Austin because UT wanted to hire me. And I have heard some feedback about UT saying that I was going to work for them and they almost got me, but they didn't. So it was kind of funny because some of the people at UT, yeah, I know him, and I said he was going to work for us. So UT sort of called me, and I came to UT, and at the same time, because I knew I got this list that he sent me, and a couple of other firms, smaller firms, talked to me. And I came in, stay at one of my friends' house, and went to the UT interview. Everything went well. I think I got an offer. And then I went to I was driving after I finished the UT interview, driving to the other firm interview. And when I was driving on my cell phone, I got a call from F. Steven and said, hey, are you interested I know you're looking, are you interested to come and work for us? I said, listen, I'm in Austin right now on an interview. And if you can squeeze me in, I'll go talk to you. I'll go and talk to you. So, but I'm going to this interview right now. I think the interview will finish like at 4 or 4:30. I think I can make it if you give me some time. I can make it to where you are. It told me about where it was. I worked downtown, before, so downtown is not a big of a deal. So I said, yeah, I'll go after my interview. I said, yeah, come to the garage, go to the elevator, call me, and then we get in. So he took me from the front. I got in after hours, 5 o'clock or whatever, through the back door, in the elevator, to a conference room, and talked to him. And we hit it off. And I found one of the guys that worked with me at Getting an Associate, the first job, and in there, that not that day, the day after. And then it went well with him. And he said, can you come the next day? I said, yeah, sure. I can come in the morning because I still have some time on my flight leave. Like I was going to spend some time with my friends on the weekend. And I think it was like a Thursday. So Friday, I was going to go and have dinner with them and have some
so you had
time.
The day, yeah.
Friend time. And just in case I found something else, I kind of booked it with a little bit of room. I said, maybe they want a second interview. I got to have Friday. And I was going to leave on Sunday. So I said, okay, Friday is the deal. So I went in, did my Friday deal. And then they asked me on Friday, and I think I came in. I met Bob Bird, which he was the director, and then say, hey, Freddy, and then hi. And then when I was about to check Bob Bird, Ricardo Trevino was there and said, hey, Freddy, how you doing? And Bob said, do you know him? I said, yeah, I work with him. Because Ricardo at the time, he was a Page employee, went to Gettings, and maybe another place, and then he came back to Page. So he was out for a few years, and he met me during that period of time. And then he told Bob that he knew me, and then Ed knew me, wanted me. I think Andy Baxter at the time wanted me, and then the two of them hired me. Almost right on the spot. They made me an offer, and I was kind of conflicted. Do I take UT? Do I take Page? Because the other firm I was not as interested. And I told my wife, I don't know, I think I feel more inclined to Page. And my wife said, yeah, if that's what you want. And because I said, yeah, I think that's what I want. And then I accepted the Page offer. And then I became a Page employee.
So for those that are listening at Page today, like they almost lost you to UT, man.
They did.
It did. I was close. Okay.
It was a close deal.
During this time, were you already a PE or were you?
I was in construction management. I was a PE in Puerto Rico. Part of the process to do inspections, you had to sign and seal the inspections. So even though I was in the field, I was signing and sealing inspections. So I needed the PE. It was part of the process of the CA for that. So there was some inspection that needed to be signed and sealed. So I signed and sealed.
You got your EIT in your first job.
I got my EIT when I was in college. I passed the test in the last semester. Because remember, I stayed an extra semester. It was not as busy. So I took that time to take the EIT. and I passed the IT that semester. And then when I graduated, I already had it.
And then when did you end up taking your actual PE itself?
When I was in Puerto Rico.
You did it in Puerto Rico?
No, I did not. I figured that Puerto Rico was too bureaucratic. So I would come to Texas and take it. Come take the opportunity to visit my friends again, the same people and I did that.
Took the test.
I came to visit.
Got your license.
Got my license.
And then applied for reciprocity in Puerto Rico.
Yes. My original license was Texas. I did that.
So those that are listening, maybe from Puerto Rico, there's a little strategy to play there.
Yeah, I figured already all my experience was in Texas. Everything was in Texas. It was too complicated for me to try to do it some other place. I kept it in Texas, and then I would use reciprocity. And that's what I did. Got it in Texas, and then 6 months later, 6 to 8 months later, I became Puerto Rico, like a long time also. So I was like, quickly, I had it in Texas, and I had it I had my name with it. But I had to go and get it in Puerto Rico, which took me a while.
So now let's see. You're a Page. You're a PE. Did you get into the data center space right away, or were you working on other types of projects that were non-data center?
I sort of stepped down a little bit when I came to Page. I wanted to step down. Like I said, I was following Mike. I got a great offer even for Lily, a lot of great opportunities. But then I stepped down as a regular engineer. And part of the conversation we had was like, let me do corporate commercial a little bit. That was the plan for me to do corporate commercial. They had this big block downtown that they were, with a hotel, a lot of 5 or 6 buildings, that they were going to build. So he said, that's the project we'll put you. I say, okay, that's perfect. That's the kind of project I want. So the economy turned down. The people that were working on that project, I think, went out of business. And we were fine with no work, and the economy was kind of rough. So there was a data center available. And he told me, and I think it was the data center of Kansas City, and I was like...
That was the first one for you.
That was the first one. But I said, but keep in mind, when I was working with Teamwa, we were doing Southwestern Bell buildings and AT&T buildings. So Freddy was just working a lot. I did a lot of AT&T and Southwestern Bell design, which it was switch buildings with racks, power, generator, UPS, all the same system. So when I was in my previous design life at Team, I was working on those buildings. So I work on all the buildings in Austin. They all have my print.
Your footprint, yeah.
Yeah, all of them. So of course, when he gave me these, I was like, okay. But I was tough because I was like, I said, okay, I'll take it, and I did. And I was like, okay, it's a telephone building. That was my first comment. That was like, okay, this is a telephone building. It was not, but that was, first.
In your mind, I'm going to think about this as a telephone bill. Got it.
Yeah, it's a telephone building. The batteries are different because they're not connected. They don't have DC distribution.
These are wet cell.
Yeah, they were wet cell also in a telephone, but they were DC distribution. They will have DC panels. And then it was so it was like, okay, the batteries go into a UPS, and then we distribute to the racks in AC instead of DC. I said, okay. And then we have a generator. So BFDs, it was, if you shut down a telephone building, you're in trouble. So everything was with sequence. So I was used to, uptime in that. Not, telephone buildings are not 2M, but they are 2M. The DC piece is 2M. So yeah, there was actually even 2M. So the DC part, not the AC part. So I was like, okay, but I struggled. I remember my first meeting, I told Ed, I don't know what you want from me. I don't even know what N means out of this meeting. I'm confused. And he was like, oh my God, Freddy. And then he told me, I said, oh, okay, I got it. But yeah, it was my first data center was Kansas City.
Wow. So put it in perspective, that's when you and I crossed paths. So.
Yes, but I have done, of course. I worked with Team teach me. And then, think about it. I did that huge plan industrial plan before that. I was like, and I was designing on the fly, with the people waiting for what I will
come up with so they can go.
What's
interesting there, kind of going back full circle, that role in a lot of ways was the power engineer for the utility company that was trying to figure out on the way to get power back to you. Mm-hmm. And you found yourself kind of fitting a similar role, designing on the fly, having people waiting for your
what a good idea.
That's kind of cool if you think about the kind of the going back full circle. Mm-hmm. So you get into your first job. Now you're in the States. You get into Kansas City, and I remember this is where I'll be able to provide a little bit of color for those that are the listeners here. That was that the first time you kind of found yourself in a space where now there's a lot of different people involved. There's a lot of different kind of at that point, English was better, but you had an accent.
I did.
Did you struggle with with that at all?
Yeah, I got out of the island. Now the people that I'm talking, I'm back. My confidence have improved a lot. I'm talking to people now that are not talking to a lot of people like me. I'm just back to be unique.
Yeah.
And so that was the first kind of culture shock. I said, well, okay, I'm back. I'm unique. It's okay.
I love the way you worded that, by the way. That's a really cool way to describe it.
Yeah. I said, I'm unique. Okay, it's okay. I'm back. I quickly, when I was working at Page, discovered that the acceptance of being unique was easier on larger firms than on smaller firms or a smaller group of people. So I quickly discovered that I tended to do better with the larger firms because they were more, the acceptance of me was higher. So, but I worked my way through it. Depends on where it was. I will work my way through it. But it was different now because I was not, like I said, my confidence was not like it was before. I have overcome that in the island with Mike Martin. I think I was a different person. I was not afraid anymore. I was just gonna get the job done.
That's awesome to hear.
So I think that was a big click, for me. But yeah, it was tough. I think at one time I was asked to be removed for a job because they couldn't understand me. So yeah, they requested to remove me, and I think at the time I said, no way, I'm removing him. They need to deal with him. He's the best person for the job, and I'm not going to remove it because you cannot understand it. You guys have to do a better job trying to say what he said.
So, I mean, let's dig into that. One of the things that I like to ask people are, what can a manager do to better support their team members? Specifically, like in your case, you got an accent, you were working on, obviously, you had all the technical competence in the world, but you were working through that aspect of it and kind of put that into perspective. So you have a client that's obviously hired you off for services. Ed's your boss at this point. Ed gets request from the client to personally remove you because they have trouble listening, and he says no.
Yeah.
That had to have been empowering for you. I guess, did he even share that they asked?
I think he said something to me because we needed to deal with the fact that I needed to slow down and do certain things. So the conversation had to happen. But yeah, he did. It's like Ed would share, and Ed was very candid, a very special person. So I was like, yeah, it was a very interesting conversation. And I have never been through that. I was lucky. I had another guy with me that kind of, he was Hispanic too. And he was like, yeah, Freddy, this has happened to me too. And he kind of shared with me, and I was like, oh, okay. That's the first time. The first time I actually faced
discrimination.
It's the first time. And it was hard. It was hard. I was, oh my God. But I think because I came for where I came, it did not change me. I think it's like, well, that's it. Think about it. I was at the beginning of my career, barely people can talk to me. So I knew this is not new to me. It's just going back. I said, man, I feel like, man, I'm going back to zero. But I think I said, well, this better be done before. So it didn't feel that bad because I already had the same. It's not my first time I encountered this. I encountered it before. But it's the first time it's being
called out. Yeah.
Called out. But I knew it. So I was like, yeah, okay. I thought I was better now. So I was like, well, okay, I got to keep improving. It's what I said to myself. And I said, I just got to focus on the project. Some of my friends like Tom, I would always say, listen, I just got to focus on the project. And the project, if you take care of the project, everything will be fine. So I will keep saying that to myself. And that's what I did. I take care of the project.
I'm curious, just for context, was this after Kansas City?
Yeah, probably.
Just because your English was great by then. You spoke fast when you got excited, but that even happens even today. But besides that, you had fantastic English. So it's just giving the listeners the context of you were already very well versed and
I think so. That's what
able to carry yourself.
That's what I felt, but think about it. It was a very combative environment on that project. So I used to get excited. So I needed to calm down. So I think when I get excited, like we discussed, I go fast. So I think I was going fast just because of who I am. And I don't think, for everybody that is listening, I don't think that's all.
Bad thing, 100%.
That is not a, I don't know. I don't know if Puerto Rican is just Freddy, my DNA, how I'm wired. And that's kind of how it goes. I get excited and I go fast. So, and it was combative work, job, and we were asked to do things that were not right. And I think I was just trying to explain why not. And I was getting fast and the client was struggling understanding why not. And at the end of the day, the project is successful. It's still working. I never been shut down. I never got an outage. It's been an amazing job through the years. So I'm saying somebody go back and look at that work. It was amazing. I can say now, 10 or 15 years later,
You stand by the work.
Yeah, my work is still there and it's working. But back in the day, I think it was a little bit of a challenge,
That says a lot, though, for Ed, if those are listening, like, that took guts for him to be able to push back and say no and stand by you and like help support you through that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's different when it comes from a client versus when it comes from the
100%.
We're a clients, we take a lot of direction for the client, so it's hard for us to tell no to a client. Not the same when you tell no to your company. Internal,
100%.
Internal is super easy. When you have internal and external, a collision is kind of harder, I will say. But we came through, and I think hopefully those people feel different about me after the project was over. And I keep in touch with them. I never took it personally. I never did. I knew that was my weakness, so I never figured that it never hurt me.
Interesting for those that are listening, because I think there are probably a lot of people that are working here that maybe have an accent that maybe have faced a similar situation. So you have a discussion with Ed. Ed tells you, he stands by you, supports you. So I think from you have the support of your team and your company. Your next engagement or your next discussion with the client, do you just act like normal? Are you trying to make the best of it, try to slow down? How did you approach that?
I try. I just want to do better. I think I did, I did. I tried to slow down, especially when things were getting heat up. I did. And I think the client, ended up accepting it. And I think later on with effort and math, we proved what we were doing was right. The client sort of gave up, said, hey, okay, they know what they're doing. I think it took him a while to recognize that I knew what I was doing. I think it's part of the problem is the language. When you hear somebody that language is broken, I think it takes a little bit longer for people to believe that you're competent. And that's part of the problem too. Once they realize that you are competent, then the things go away. So for anyone that is listening, I think that was my lesson. You stick to what you know and do what you know is right, and it will be okay. But once they figure that out, I think they let it go. First we say no. Second, they figure I was competent. So I think that went away.
That's fantastic, Freddie. And that's so true. Like, I feel like one's natural bias when you struggle with language, because it's such a fundamental thing of just human interaction, is you immediately associate that to, well, incompetence. Well, does that person even know what they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, and I've had this explained to me the other way, and it hit home. In a lot of cases, you're trying to communicate in a second or third language, something that is incredibly technical, that you understand the subject matter expertise, but you're working through like the in your brain, translating it potentially once or twice just to be able to express your thoughts. That in alone is much deeper in and depth. Like, if it is just, it's hard to explain. And so just have that empathy and try to have, to your point, try to be like the person that was teaching you about CAD. Like, be intentional about slowing down, because you'll miss great opportunities if you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of focus on Paige now. So start with Paige, and you've been there now 16 years. How has that been? Obviously, you've climbed through the ranks. You're now where you are with them. How is it now when you think of like the team that you manage? And I mean, you have drafters that work on your team that maybe like resemble where you were back in the day? You have young engineers. Kind of just walk me through a day in the life of your role now.
Well, I think the goal is always to try to make sure that everybody learn and everybody feel that it's a great experience. And this I work very hard to create this sense of team or this community. I discovered through the years that from things that we talk, Ed, Mike, some of the things that my mentor taught me, that community was very important thing. So all these people that come in, if we all work together and we all work with a single goal and we all happy, we will do a great job. One thing that what we do, and I've been trying to pass along to all the people that I work with, at Page and outside of Page, and many people that will hear this, they know this, is that just like I think you just mentioned, it's not what the person knows, it's what we can teach the person and how far we can make it go. Sometimes people focus a lot into what a person can do, what the people know, or what their resume is, instead of what the person have done and how capable they are to learn. And I try to continue to teach that forward, to it's not that important what you know today, is what you're gonna know tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think that is my thing. That's my day to day. I try to make sure that I keep passing that on to the group and make sure that we continue to keep that, that sense of community, that we're not just working there. Because you got to work just to work, trying to make a community. I think, to me, that is what it's all about. I'm trying to make sure that, there's a lot of things for me on this, you work for them, and your job is to keep those families fed, and you have a big responsibility. So it's a huge responsibility to make sure that it's not just my family now, it's everybody's family. That's the way I see it. That's how I get out of bed every day, I do many things. My role is like trying to make sure that the machine works and operates in the right direction. But the gist of it is make sure to create a sense of community and make sure that everybody feels happy and is learning and is growing. That's the goal. That's what I envision my job today. That's kind of where I am right now in my career.
So I want to ask a couple of questions, and then I want to make sure we get any other items that you want to make sure we cover. If you're a young student now and you're kind of know you're in engineering route, but you're not sure if you want to go design or you want to go hardware or just anywhere, kind of what advice would you give them, given the fact that you had your journey, right? You've been on the construction side, you've been on the design side. How would you give advice to somebody that's kind of trying to figure out, well, where do they head?
I say follow your instincts and what you like the most. My life experience told me that you do what you like and don't worry about the money, especially when you're young. You will think money is so important at the beginning, but it's not. I think money comes later in life. You should focus on what you like and do what you like. Don't let money make the decision for you. You pick what you like, and then money will come because you will be happy and you will like what you're doing. I think that will be my advice to you. So if you like construction, then do construction. If you're a person that like to move around and like to be kind of active, doesn't want to be sitting in a chair, that's kind of your lifestyle, and then you want to be like that. I think, I like that too. I'm personally like that. I think construction is good for you. But if you want to be in a single place where you don't travel that much and you're more focused on your family, maybe you want to consider design. The two of them have their pros and their cons. That I have traveled the world on design, but I just go for short trips. I don't move for 3 or 4 or 5 months. Sometimes in construction, you don't move, but you have to travel 3 hours, 2 hours to get to a job site. Now you see yourself leaving at 5 a.m. to make it to 7 a.m. and then coming back at 7 o'clock at home because you have your project is 2 hours away because you have to travel to the project. And, sometimes you can live in the ecosystem of a city, but when you specialize in a particular branch, like data centers or telephone buildings or any kind of building, then you find yourself traveling to keep that specialty alive.
Alive, yeah.
So that's the challenge but if you want to keep it in construction, if you really care about construction and that's what you want to do, maybe you keep it general and then you focus on the area and you do jobs around that area. If you want to be specialized, then you probably will be traveling a little bit more just to be able to deal with that fact that you're looking for that type of
that type of industry and that type of location that specializes
that specialize on that. But design allows you to specialize without having to
shift and
to move,
travel and move.
Travel. So I think those are things that sometimes people don't think through when they're making the decision, and they focus, on what they can get at the beginning versus what they can get now.
100%.
You will see that construction will pay a little bit higher at the beginning and design won't. But I think when you move 10 years down the road, they will be the same. Very, very similar. You probably would make a little more money you in construction, but you need to keep in mind that you are kind of more flexible with your moving around. With design, you're kind of in one place. So I think that's the delta. But when you look 10, 15 years down the road, it's very similar.
Wash, yeah.
It's a wash. So
100%. I came up construction and I moved all over the U.S. every 2 or 3 years because you're constantly, if you're successful, you build a job and you move to the next one.
And you specialize.
And so, everything you're saying resonates very, very well with the truth and the reality of our industry. The next thing is our industry is very robust. There's a labor shortage. And so hopefully, it doesn't matter what side of the ecosystem they come in, as long as they come into the ecosystem is all that matters.
They will be okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure we're wrapping up on time, Freddy. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important to share, that you think our listeners will resonate with?
I say, be proud of who you are and be confident. I've seen a lot, when I talk to a lot of people, sometimes we get a little bit kind of caught up with education. And I think if you find your job, don't worry about that much about education. Be happy with that job and do your best on that job. I think you'll be okay. Sometimes we sometimes trying to fill that void with education is not the best option. I will say, if you like your job and you're doing great, just stay there, you will grow. Typically, if that's how it works, especially in the construction and the design industry, longevity is really important in our industry. So if you're in our business, you will learn that is an important thing. Stay in the business for a long time will pay off. That's something, if I can share, I will share, with you guys, that stay in the business.
Awesome. Thank you, Freddy. And the one thing that I try to do is to pay it forward as much as I can. And you were talking about the mentors and the people that had an impact in your life and how appreciative you are. And I would be remiss to not at least take the opportunity to tell you thank you. When our cross passed, I was 22, 23 years old. To say I knew what I was doing is probably an overstatement. I was young, just trying to figure it out. And you poured a lot into me, and I just can't thank you enough for that. It set me in the right place. It put me in a place where I could succeed. And I know for a fact that I am where I am because of people like you in my life. So I just wanted to share that publicly and openly and just say thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm so glad that I can pay it forward. And all I ask for my people is just to pay it forward to somebody else. You don't do what I did forward, and we'll make a better world.
Awesome.
That's what I stand.
Well, Freddy, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Okay.